Happy Monday, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Alexis Alvarez, also known as Alexis Bartholomew, going by my maiden name or my married name at times these times. But thank you for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Director of Statewide Training at Florida Legal Services, and we're starting off our Monday strong on the topic of taxes. As I just said to Miguel before we got on here, is the only thing that's certain in life, right? Death and taxes. So here we are learning your pre-file season tax tips for our low-income taxpayers, doing the best that we can to assist them in being successful in their taxes and getting their returns and getting everything done the right way to benefit as much as they can. Housekeeping announcements before we get started. This is being recorded. A copy of the recording will be sent to all of you who registered. That will come within 24 hours in an email from Zoom, not from me. I'm going to pop my email into the chat. That way, if you don't see that email from Zoom, you can always reach out to me directly, and I'll make sure you get the copy of this recording because I know you're going to need to go back and look at it. Taxes are always sometimes clear, and then sometimes clear as mud. So you're going to want to look back at it to make sure you get everything correct. Second piece of housekeeping announcements, CLE credit. This was awarded CLE credit through the Florida Bar. I will be popping that CLE code into the chat at the end of this presentation. I will also be announcing that CLE code out loud, and that CLE code will also be included with the recording in that email from Zoom that you will receive within 24 hours. Third piece of housekeeping announcements, most important one, questions and answers. Like I said, things might seem very technical in this training or that there are nuances or things that might seem confusing. So please drop your questions into the chat or the Q&A. You can drop them into the chat or the Q&A throughout the presentation to be answered, in live time, or you can wait till the end of the presentation for a Q&A session. We're flexible here. All we want to do is get you the information. So drop your questions in as you want, and we will make sure to answer them as soon as we see them hit that Q&A or the chat. Final piece of housekeeping announcements, your closed captions. I have enabled the closed captions. That way you can read what I'm saying. For anyone that needs that extra accessibility, you should be able to enable those closed captions on your end by clicking either a CC, show captions, or the more button and lifting that up and clicking over there. It really depends on your platform, where you have your Zoom on. But if you need some assistance in getting those closed captions going for yourself, just either email me. I'm going to pop my email into the chat, or send me a message directly on the chat, and I'll work with you to get you onboarded. So with that being said, I'm going to turn over to the introduction of our speaker here today. We have Miguel Cardona, who is a qualified tax expert with the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic of the Legal Aid Service of Broward County. Miguel has been with the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic at Legal Service of Broward County for more than 2 years. Miguel previously worked nearly 4 years with the Internal Revenue Service, handling taxpayers' records regarding underreported incomes on their tax returns. After leaving the Internal Revenue Service, Miguel worked as an insurance specialist with the Department of Veteran Affairs, managing the service-disabled veterans' life insurance. Thereafter, Miguel attended the University of Illinois School of Law in Chicago, where he obtained his Juris Doctor. Before joining the legal aid, Miguel worked as an immigration attorney in the state of Illinois, where he also holds a law license. So we've got the expert here with us. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Miguel. Thank you so much for providing us with this training in just a perfect time. April coming up so soon. We're excited to learn from you. The floor is yours.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me here, and thank you all for listening to this presentation. And as Alexis mentioned, I'm going to be speaking about pre-filing season tax tips. Some pre-filing season tax tips. Before filing your return, there are some steps that you can take to make tax filing easier. Planning before filing will help you along the way. You will be more likely to file an accurate return, and you can avoid delays that can slow your tax refund. Some steps to make tax filing easier. Create or access your account information at irs.gov/account. You can click on sign in to your online account and either sign in with an existing account, or if you don't have an account with the IRS, you can create a new account. Through your online account, you can view your tax owed, payments that you have made, and any payment plans. You can also make payments and apply for payment plans. You can access your tax records, and you can manage your communication preferences from the IRS, including receiving IRS correspondence in different languages. Some other steps to make tax filing easier. Gather and organize your tax records. Organized tax records make preparing a complete and accurate tax return easier. It helps you avoid errors that lead to delays that slow your refund, and may also help you find overlooked deductions or credits. Some documents that you may need to file your return include Forms W-2 from your employers, Forms 1099 from banks, issuing agencies, and other payers, including unemployment compensation, dividends, pension, annuity, or retirement plans distributions. Some other forms may include Form 1099-K, 1099 miscellaneous, W-2, or other income statement if you worked in the gig economy. And I will be speaking in more details about the gig economy in a moment. Other forms may include Form 1099 interest if you were paid interest, other income documents and records of digital asset transactions, Form 1095-A for health insurance marketplace statement to reconcile advance payments or claims of premium tax credits through the marketplace coverage, some IRS or other agency letters, and a notice CP-01A with your new identity protection PIN. This is especially necessary, this notice CP-01A, to taxpayers who have either been assigned an identity protection PIN from the IRS or who have requested an identity protection PIN. If you have been assigned an identity protection PIN, you are not going to be able to file your return unless you provide the identity protection PIN. And it is important to note that if you have been assigned an identity protection PIN, that PIN number is going to change every year. And usually the IRS mails that notice in December so that the person can have the PIN available for the tax season. So it's important that if a person has been assigned an identity protection PIN and have not received the letter by January, they have to contact the IRS so that they can obtain their identity protection PIN, if it applies. Some other pre-filing season tax tips. Notify the IRS if your address changes through any of the following methods. Completing a filing form 8822, which is a change of address form that is available on irs.gov, and it's a simple form. All you have to do is provide your personal information on the form, include your old address, the new address, and then the form will give you the address where to mail it, depending on the state that you live. You can use your new address when you file your return, and the IRS is going to update your tax record with the address that you provide on the return. You can also send to the IRS a signed written statement that includes your full name, old and new address, and your social security number or individual taxpayer identification number to the address that is shown on the screen. Keep in mind that this address is only for residents of Florida. If you are not a resident of Florida, then you have to go to irs.gov and look up the address where you can mail your change of address request. You can also call the IRS at 1-800-829-1040 and provide your new address. Other tax tips includes remembering that most income is taxable. This includes unemployment income, interest received, and incomes from the gig economy. Incomes from the gig economy are generally activities where people earn income providing on-demand work, services, or goods. Often, it is through a digital platform like an app or a website. Also, some other examples of taxable income are digital assets. Some examples are virtual currency, cryptocurrency, stable coins, and non-fungible tokens. Some additional steps to make tax filing easier include making sure that you have withheld enough taxes from your paychecks. You may want to consider adjusting your withholding if in prior years you owe taxes to the IRS or if you received a large refund when you filed. Changing your withholding can help you avoid a tax bill or let you keep more money each payday. Adjusting your withholding is something that you do through your employer by completing a new Form W-4. You can use the tax withholding estimator available on irs.gov to help you determine the right amount of tax to have withheld from your paycheck. Another consideration are estimated tax payments. Estimated tax payments are payments submitted to the IRS on a quarterly basis to cover the income tax, self-employment tax, and alternative minimum tax of certain incomes where the employer does not withhold any taxes. Certain types of incomes may also require estimated tax payments. So sometimes it is not just a choice making estimated tax payments, but a requirement, especially if the person receives the income, if the person that receives the income is responsible for the taxes. Some example are self-employment income, investment income, taxable Social Security benefits, some pensions and annuities, prizes, and awards. Some of these examples, either the employer or the payer does not withhold any taxes from the income of the person, so the person is responsible for paying the taxes and reporting the income to the IRS. To make estimated tax payments, you can log into your online account, which is irs.gov/payments. Some additional steps to make tax filing easier is to get banked. You can speed up tax refunds with direct deposits. If you file electronically, you choose direct deposit, you will receive your refund faster. It's something good to keep in mind when filing a return to provide your banking information. Some additional tips to consider the next time that you file is knowing about what is taxable and what is not taxable. What is taxable income? All incomes, including part-time work, side jobs, or the sale of goods, is taxable. The general rule is that all incomes must be reported on the return unless excluded by law. What is not taxable? Some personal payments, including money received as a gift or for repayment of shared expenses. This is popular now with so many apps where people transfer money between them, especially if money is for reimbursement. Sometimes people share the expenses. One person pays for the bill, and then another person reimburses the person that paid for the bill. The person that receives the reimbursement, if that reimbursement is through an app, the app company may report to the IRS the reimbursement as income to the person. And sometimes the person explains that they didn't receive any income. It was just a reimbursement, or it could be a gift. Sometimes between relatives and friends, people may just share expenses or give gifts. Some of those money transfers may not be taxable to the recipient. But if it gets reported to the IRS is going to treat that reimbursement as taxable income because the IRS is not going to be aware that that particular income was a reimbursement for dinner or whatever the reimbursement was for. In those cases, the company, usually there are many different apps where people exchange money. The app company may report to the IRS a Form 1099-K for some of these personal payments. And those payments, if they are not for the sale of goods or the provision of services, and the gifts are within certain amounts, they may be noted on the return as personal. And then an offset entry may be reported on the return so that the payment is not treated as taxable income. If you are not familiar with the tax form, so you may want to seek some professional help when filing your return if you receive these type of incomes. But just keep in mind that if you have one of these platforms, you may want to log into your online account and then look for any tax forms that the company may report to the IRS under your social security number. Because if they report it to the IRS and it is not included on the return, even if it is not taxable, it may create a discrepancy. Something important to note is that just because income is not for the sale of goods or the provision of services does not necessarily mean that income is not taxable. An example is gambling income. When people gamble and they receive gambling income, they are not selling any goods or they are not providing any services. They are just gambling. That's still taxable income. So it's important to note that just because something is not for the sale of goods or the provision of services is not necessarily taxable. And there are other examples of incomes that are also taxable, even though they are not for the sale of goods or provision of services, like certain inheritance. Other tips to consider the next time that you file are good record keeping is key. Be sure to keep good records because it helps you when it is time to file your tax return. Don't forget to keep track of expenses. This is especially important for people that are self-employed. People that are self-employed may be able to claim expenses for their self-employment income, but there are requirements. You have to keep records of what you have sold and what you have been paid for services throughout the year. The IRS allows self-employed taxpayers to claim expenses, but the burden of proof to claim expenses is on the taxpayer. And for the burden of proof, what the IRS requires and courts are what is called adequate records. Adequate records can include certain statements, logs, receipts. There are different forms of adequate records or sufficient evidence to corroborate the own statement of the person claiming the expenses. There are other circumstances in which the IRS or courts may take into account other factors to determine if certain expenses may be allowed, but the general rule is that the person has to have adequate records to prove the expenses, especially for self-employed individuals or taxpayers that receive self-employment income. Keep business and personal transactions separate to make it easier to figure out what you may owe. If you are a self-employed person and you have a business account and a personal account, just don't commingle business use with personal use. So the business bank account should only be used for business purposes, not for personal purposes. Some additional steps to make tax filing easier include certain changes that may affect your tax refund. Life events such as purchasing a home, going to college, or losing a job may make you eligible for certain tax benefits. Other circumstances, such as getting married or divorced, welcoming a child, or experiencing the death of a spouse or a dependent you claim, could also affect your tax benefit eligibility and filing status. Some of these changes could mean that you may qualify for tax credits, such as a child tax credit, the education credit, the earned income tax credit, and the child and dependent care credit. For 2023, the child tax credit is worth $2,000 for each qualifying child. A child must be under age 17 at the end of 2023 to be a qualifying child. For the earned income tax credit, eligible taxpayers with no qualifying children may get $600 for the 2023 tax year, as long as they meet other eligibility requirements. For the child and dependent care credit, taxpayers may receive up to 35% of their employment expenses. Avoid refund delays and understand refund time. Although the IRS issues most refunds in less than 21 days, many different factors can affect the timing of your refund after the IRS receives your return. Some examples are identity theft and refund fraud. Sometimes people have been a victim of identity theft from years ago, and they are unaware, especially if they haven't filed in prior years, that they have a debt with the IRS. And then when they find out about the debt, it's identity theft. The person was unaware that their social security number was being used fraudulently to either work or file returns, or it may be a refund fraud where the social security of the person was fraudulently used to claim a refund. That can delay a refund or the processing of a return. The IRS cannot issue earned income credit and advanced child tax credit before the middle of February. And some returns may require manual review. On the next slide, I'm going to speak about the manual review process of the IRS, which is the IRS integrity and verification process. This is a process where the IRS compares the income and withholding that are reported on the return with the income and withholding that are reported from employers and payers to the IRS. Generally, this is through an automated system. So the IRS receives, just as employers and payers sends forms to taxpayers, they have to send the forms to the IRS. So if the forms that the IRS receives that are recorded in the IRS system do not match the information or the forms that are included on the return, during that comparison, if the information matches, then manual review of the return may not be required, and refund return processing delays may be avoided. Now, if when the person files a return and the information on the return gets compared to the information that the IRS received from employers and payers under that social security number, if there is a mismatch during that comparison, then manual review of the return may be required, and refund return processing may be delayed, either the processing of the return or the refund. And the delay of the processing will depend on many different factors and the complexity of the case. So each case is going to be different. But some good practice when filing the return is that before you file the return, make sure that you have all the forms that you received from your employers or payers. And if you didn't receive, make sure that you take some action to obtain the forms or record about any incomes that you might have received throughout the year to avoid any processing delays. The purpose of the IRS integrity and verification process that I just explained is to ensure that accurate returns are processed and it helps identify fraudulent refunds before refunds are issued. So if a person files a return with information that doesn't match the IRS system, the IRS can stop that return, especially if that return is being filed fraudulent. So it's a good system to detect these types of fraudulent schemes. Some additional tax tips are filing your taxes. The IRS on its website, irs.gov, has IRS free file platforms. You can choose from different platforms that the IRS provides, and some of them may allow you to file your returns for free. If you are a service member or a qualified veteran, you may use Militax to file your return. You can go to military.onesource.mil and you are going to be able to file your return for free. If you are unable to afford a tax professional, the IRS has a program which is Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, VITA. VITA has multiple locations around the country. Almost every county has a VITA location. If you want to look up the nearest VITA location, you can go to fltaxesonline.org. Some of VITA locations may allow you to obtain virtual assistance, and some may allow you to walk in with your tax forms to file your return at one of these locations. Or you can find a tax professional of your choice. Some additional tax tips include getting your refund status. After you file your return, you can check the status of your refund by going to irs.gov and clicking on Where is my refund? The status of your refund will be available within 24 hours after the IRS accepts your e-filed tax return. The Where is my refund tool updates once every 24 hours, usually overnight. So you only need to check once a day. April 15th is the tax filing deadline for most taxpayers this year. For most taxpayers, the deadline to file their personal federal tax return, pay any tax owed, or request an extension to file is Monday, April 15th. Taxpayers living in Maine or Massachusetts have until April 17th due to the Patriots' Day and Emancipation Day holidays. If a taxpayer resides in a federally declared disaster area, they also may have additional time to file. People should wait to file until they receive all income-related documents, especially people who may receive different forms from different employers or payers, such as unemployment compensation, dividends, pensions, annuities, or retirement plan distributions. And as I just explained earlier, if you do not receive the forms, don't just file the return. You have to take some steps to try to get documents. If you don't receive the forms, just contact the employer or the payer so that you can obtain the documents that you need to file your return. If you need more time to file or prepare your federal tax return, you may request an extension to file. An extension of time to file your return does not grant you any extension of time to pay your taxes. That's something good to keep in mind. The extension is to file, not to pay, because the IRS can impose different penalties. There is a penalty which is a failure to timely file your return and failure to pay penalty. So if you request an extension to file, you may avoid the failure to file penalty, failure to timely file. Now, you still have to pay your taxes to avoid paying, getting an additional penalty for failure to pay. Although if you pay a certain amount of the balance that you owe, and then you pay the remaining before the end of the extension, you may also be able to avoid the failure to pay on time penalty. You should estimate and pay any owed taxes by your regular deadline to help avoid possible penalties. You must file your extension request no later than the regular due date of your return. Taxpayers in certain disaster areas do not need to submit an extension electronically or on paper. They will automatically get an extension. How to request an extension to file. Individual tax filers, regardless of income, can use IRS Free File to electronically request an automatic tax filing extension through irs.gov. Filing this form gives you until October 15th to file a return. To get the extension, you must estimate your tax liability on this form and should also pay any amount due. An extension to file may also be requested when you make a payment. You can pay all or part of your estimated income tax due electronically through your IRS individual online account and indicate that the payment is for an extension. This will automatically give you an extension to file until October 15th without having to file a separate extension. Another way to request an extension to file is by mailing a paper form to the IRS. For this, you can complete a mail form 4868, which is an application for automatic extension of time to file U.S. individual income tax return. You will also have to estimate your tax liability on this form and should also pay any amount due. Low-income taxpayer claim. What is the low-income taxpayer clinic? The low-income taxpayer clinic is an IRS income tax controversy resolution assistance program. We provide education on tax rights and responsibilities to taxpayers. We provide resources to taxpayers who may not be able to afford a tax professional. We represent low-income taxpayers involved in tax disputes with the IRS, and all our services are free to income-eligible clients. Now, the legal aid service of Broward County and Collier County do not charge any fee whatsoever for our services. But there are low-income taxpayer clinics around the nation, and some of them may charge a nominal fee, something to keep in mind. And there is a publication on irs.gov, which is publication 4134. Publication 4134 will give you a list of all the low-income taxpayer clinics around the nation, and they are usually divided by state and county. Okay, what we do at the low-income taxpayer clinic? We help you find solutions to your tax debt or refund disputes. It could be a debt from years ago, or it could be a debt arising from the current tax return. Sometimes people have old debts and they're expecting a refund, and the refund may get applied to the debt. Generally, that's what the IRS does. So we can provide assistance if you still have a balance, even if the refund is applied to your old balance, or if you just owe to the IRS and need assistance in addressing your tax debt. We also provide assistance with refund disputes. Sometimes people have been waiting for refunds for years. It could be identity theft related, where the person was expecting a refund and the refund was applied to a debt that the person was unaware, and it was due to an identity theft issue. And sometimes identity theft issues can take around a year. Depending on the complexity of the case, it can take more than a year or years to resolve an identity theft case. And sometimes a person just needs to wait to get the refund, but there are other circumstances in which the IRS just needs certain documentation that may be provided to expedite the issuing of a refund. We also provide assistance in responding to IRS letters. Sometimes the IRS audits a person's return, they send a letter to the person, and person needs to provide some supporting documentation for some of the entries on the return, and we provide assistance in responding to IRS letters or any other letters. We provide assistance with liens and levies. Sometimes people owe to the IRS, and depending on the amount that the person owes to the IRS can file a lien with the county. A lien is an interest that the IRS acquires on the person's property, or the IRS can also acquire interest in any property that the person may acquire in the future after the lien was filed. So that's something that we can provide assistance with, whether the IRS has notified you that they are in the process or considering to file a lien, or they have already filed a lien. We may be able to assist you with that. Also with levies. Levies is something important, especially for the elderly. Sometimes there are taxpayers that they just live on Social Security and they don't file returns. They are retired, they haven't filed returns for years, and they just receive Social Security benefits, and sometimes they're expecting their Social Security benefits, like they receive it every month, and then when they look at their Social Security benefit, they receive a lesser amount. And then sometimes they contact the Social Security Administration, and the Social Security Administration informs them that the IRS levied there's a portion of their Social Security benefit. And that's called a garnishment. And when IRS garnishes the income, is because the person has a debt with the IRS, and sometimes the person is unaware that they had a debt, especially the elderly that are retired and just live on Social Security. They don't file returns. Then when they call the IRS informs them that there is a debt pending. And sometimes people just moved from addresses, and the IRS sent letters to an old address, or most of the time when elderly especially are unaware of these debts are because of identity theft. So if a person filed a fraudulent return with that person's Social Security number and they put a different address on that return, the IRS is going to be sending letters probably to that address that was included on the fraudulent return. So the person is not going to be aware of anything. And then when they call the IRS informs them that it's been years since the debt was pending. They never heard from the taxpayer, so they initiated the levy process. And there are some steps that have to be taken to address the situation, but that's something that we also provide assistance with when the person has had their incomes, or sometimes it's a bank account levy. We also provide assistance with innocent and injured spouse claims. Innocent spouse claims and injured spouse are different. For innocent spouse claim, the requirement is that the person must have filed a joint return. Sometimes a married couple, they file a joint return and then they either separate or divorce. If the couple filed a married filing joint return, both spouses are going to be held liable. And that's something that we may be able to provide assistance with if one of the spouses qualifies for innocent spouse. That if the IRS grants the innocent spouse relief, one of the spouses may be relieved from liability. Otherwise, both spouses are going to be held liable. Injured spouse is something different. If, let's say, for instance, that a couple gets married, but one of the spouses had a prior legally enforceable obligation. It could be child support from before they got married. So if they got married, they're filing a joint return, the IRS can take a refund, even if a portion of the refund is supposed to be because of the person that didn't have the debt. So that person may be able to request injured spouse if a portion of that person's refund was either applied to the other spouse's debt prior to the marriage or is expected to be applied to the other spouse's debt prior to the marriage. That's the difference, main difference between innocent spouse and injured spouse. We also provide assistance with underreported incomes. Underreported incomes, it's something common with the IRS. Generally, with underreported incomes, the IRS, after the person files a return and sometimes even receive a refund or has a balance, the IRS discovers some additional incomes that were reported to the IRS under that person's social security number, but the income was not included on the return. And sometimes this happens, it could happen even a year after the person filed a return, received a refund, and then the IRS sends a letter about an underreported income. Something important about these notices of underreported incomes is that when the IRS sends that particular underreported income letter, they inform the taxpayer that they have certain amount of time to respond and explain to the IRS whether the person agrees or disagrees with the information that the IRS received. If there is a disagreement, the person has to respond within that time frame, because that letter is going to notify the taxpayer that if the information that the IRS received that was not included on the return is accurate, the person may have to pay to the IRS. Now, before the IRS can assess that money, when the IRS sends that initial letter about the underreported income that the IRS discovered after the return was filed, that's a proposal. A proposal means that the IRS is proposing the person to pay a certain amount of money if the information is correct, because the information was omitted from the return and was not taken into account when the return was filed. That proposal may become an assessment. An assessment is the IRS's authority to collect that money. But before the IRS can assess that initial proposal, the IRS has to send a final notification to the taxpayer, which is called a notice of deficiency. It's really important that when a taxpayer receives that notice of deficiency, they have to take certain action, because that notice of deficiency is going to be the IRS's final notification to the taxpayer to either respond to the IRS, and if the person disagrees, or petition the tax court. If the person neither petitions the tax court nor responds to the IRS, when that time frame expires of the final notification, the IRS is authorized to collect that money and take any collections actions against that person. So it's really important that the person responds, and if the person doesn't respond to that letter and doesn't petition the tax court, the person is not going to be able to petition the tax court after that time frame has expired. So the tax court, U.S. tax court, is a court of limited jurisdiction, and that's a requirement that you need to get into the court, that you petition the court within that time frame specified on that final notification. Something important to keep in mind, that that final IRS notification does not necessarily have to be because of an underreported income. It could be for another issue, like an audit. The IRS may audit a person's return, and then if the IRS is unable to resolve the discrepancy with the taxpayer within a certain amount of time, the IRS is going to issue that final notification informing the taxpayer that they have a certain amount of time to either petition the tax court or get the issue resolved with the IRS. If the taxpayer petitions the tax court within that time frame, then the IRS is not going to assess that money. The IRS is going to stop any actions against that proposal, and they're going to wait for the case to be resolved through the tax court process. Once there is a court decision from the U.S. tax court, if the person petitioned the court, timely petitioned the court, and there is a final court order about that particular balance, then the IRS is going to be able to either collect the money or make any necessary adjustment per the court's order. So it's really important that taxpayers that receive that type of final notification from the IRS take some action. And we also provide representation to taxpayers before the United States Tax Court. We also provide assistance with application for individual taxpayer identification numbers. These are numbers, individual taxpayer identification numbers are numbers that are assigned to taxpayers that don't have social security numbers, but that generate incomes. So just because a person doesn't have a social security number and generates income, that doesn't mean that the person doesn't have to file a return. Every person has to file a return if the person receives incomes, even if the person doesn't have a social security number. In those cases, the person will have to request an individual taxpayer identification. We also provide assistance in clearing up identity theft issues. And as I explained before, as of right now, the estimated time frame for the IRS to resolve identity theft issues is more than a year. And even after you wait a year after filing the claim for identity theft, the IRS can inform that they need an additional year depending on the complexity of the case. So it's something that takes time to resolve, and it's something that it's very common among taxpayers. And we provide assistance with all of these issues. The Low-Income Taxpayer Clinic of the Legal Aid Service of Broward County and Collier County has some requirements to qualify for assistance. Some of the requirements are that the person be a resident of Broward or Collier County, that the household income is within 250% of the federal poverty guidelines, that the person has a tax controversy with the IRS, and that the amount in controversy is not more than $50,000 for any taxable year. Something good to keep in mind is that the Low-Income Taxpayer Clinic is a tax controversy resolution program. So we provide assistance to taxpayers that have a tax controversy with the IRS. That is a requirement. We are not a tax preparation program. So if taxpayers need assistance just to file the return during the filing season, there is a separate program that I explained before, which is a volunteer income tax assistance program, VITA. We are a tax controversy. We may be able to file returns for some taxpayers, but not just if the taxpayer needs assistance during the filing season. Just if the taxpayer needs to get a return filed to address another controversy with the IRS. Another thing to keep in mind is that different low-income taxpayer clinics around the nation may have different requirements to qualify for the services. So you can go to publication 4134 and you can look up the low-income taxpayer tax clinic that provides assistance to your particular county of residence, and you will see the contact information, and you can contact them if you need assistance from any other low-income taxpayer clinic and ask for their particular requirements to qualify for assistance. We are located in Broward County at that address. In Naples, we have an office, and we have another office in Immokalee, and that's my contact information. So if any of you have any questions, you can just take my information. You can call me. You can call me at the number at the top, that will be my direct line, or you can just send me an email. And if you have any questions, you can type it in the chat, or you can ask any questions.
Thank you, Miguel. Awesome. Really appreciate this training. You have a really great delivery to you in making things that seem uber complicated clearer. So I appreciate you giving us this training and doing it with such ease. Folks, you heard Miguel. Please drop your questions into the chat or the Q&A. I'll take up some airtime right now just with the logistics and the CLE code. Of course, if you come up with questions later on, Miguel has really generously said, call me, email me. So, part of our training initiative is to learn, but also to connect. So if you come up with a question later on, make sure you ask. A question did come in through the chat, Miguel. I'm going to read it out loud. And then while you answer, I'll pop the CLE code information out for people. So the question that came in through the chat is, if a private tax preparer has previously prepared my taxes, does that mean I already have an irs.gov account?
If you did not create an IRS.gov account with that tax preparer, you are not going to have an account. That's something that you have to create yourself, and it's just a registration. You can go to irs.gov/account and then just register and create a new account. But that doesn't mean that you have an IRS account just because a private tax preparer prepare your
So
taxes.
Miguel, though, how would one find out, right? So let's say somebody did have a private taxpayer prepare their taxes, and let's say that person did create an IRS.gov account for this individual. Like, how would you find out, or do you even need to find out? Is it okay to just make another one, or is there a way to find out to make sure you don't have multiple accounts?
Okay, so if you go on irs.gov/account and you try to create an account, you have to enter your social security number. So if for any reason there was an account created before, they are going to tell you, the system is going to notify you that an account already exists with that social security number, and you may have to call the IRS directly to see what happened, who created that account. But that's generally how you can find out if you try to create a new account.
Got it. That makes sense to me. So it's attached to your social security number. You're not going to be able to make multiple accounts.
Correct.
Okay, awesome. Well, folks, I popped the CLE code into the chat. That code is 2401797N as in Nancy. Again, 2401797N as in Nancy. And this course qualified for 1 general CLE credit. I think I put CLE code, excuse me, credit, and 1 tax law certification credit. So, with that being said, we do have a few more minutes. I'm going to check the Q&A, make sure nothing came in through there. Okay. Nothing came in through there. The chat, no other questions. Miguel, I didn't pop your contact information into the chat. Is this presentation something I can share with folks? That way they have the slide with your contact information, or would you like me to pop that into the chat?
Oh, definitely. You can share the presentation.
Okay, thank you. So folks, in 24 hours, you're going to get an email from Zoom. It's going to include the CLE code, this recording, and I'll also include a PDF version of Miguel's PowerPoint here today. Also wanted to mention, Miguel, earlier in the presentation, you mentioned a IRS publication 4134. I did pop that into the chat as well. And folks, if you click that link, it will take you directly to that list of service providers for low income tax that Miguel had mentioned. Miguel, is there anything else? Oh, another question came in. Yay. Question is, if a taxpayer has to correct a tax filing, how long do they have?
Generally, there are 3 years to file an amended return. So that's a general time frame, although a person may be able to file an amended return even after the 3 years. But it depends if the person is trying to get a refund, so there are specific time frames. But the general time frame is 3 years to file an amended return.
where would somebody, is there a particular tax code that talks about this that people can look to get the specific timeframes that might be relevant?
Yes, the specific form to file an amended return is Form 1040X. And the Form 1040X can be searched on irs.gov. There is a search tool on irs.gov. You can search for Form 1040X, and the Form 1040X is a form to file an amended return. An amended return is a change to the original return. And you can also look up instructions for Form 1040X. And then when you pull up the instructions for the Form 1040X, it'll give you the timeframes. Now, if the 3 years have passed to file an amended return, the person may still be able to file an amended return, but if the person was expecting a refund, the IRS, there are some certain timeframes for the IRS to be able to pay a refund, or it could be 2 years from when the tax was paid. So even though the person generally has 3 years, the IRS may be able to accept an amended return after the 3 years, but the IRS may not be able to pay a refund if it's been over 3 years.
Got it. And so another question came in. Do all individuals have to file a tax return? What if their income is so low that they don't owe a tax?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, so returns get filed on a Form 1040. And then the Form 1040 has some instructions. So you can go to irs.gov and you can look up instructions for Form 1040. Then at the beginning of the instructions, through the first pages, I'm not sure which page exactly, but if you keep reading through the instructions, it will give you the requirements to file a return. So if it depends on your filing status. If you are a single person and your incomes are less than a certain amount, you may not have a filing requirement. But if you are married filing jointly, if you're head of household, depending on the filing status, the income bracket is going to change. So it's based on the income bracket and filing status.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I hope that answers your question, Susan. And with that, I don't see any other questions that have come in. I do see, one thank you, saying thank you for this training, Miguel. So, I can echo that and say thank you as well. This was extremely informative. And folks, you heard it. If you have any questions that come up later on or, that come to mind after you're reviewing this again, please feel free to reach out to Miguel. He's incredibly kind, incredibly helpful. And very passionate about what he does. So I am so certain that he will help you. Miguel, more thank yous coming into the chat.
Oh,
And
my pleasure.
anything else you want to say before we sign off today?
Thank you all for listening. It was my pleasure.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you to everyone who is here today. Thank you to everyone who does all the great work out there for, our low income population and for our legal aid services. And we will see you at the next training. All right, everyone. Have a good
Bye,
rest of your
everyone.
day.
Bye.
Bye, Miguel. Thank
Bye.
you.
You're welcome. Bye.